right, welcome back to another episode of Darius College Steps to Success. And today I have a very special guest, one of my closest friends, Xavier Shakes. He's actually attending University of Indianapolis to get his master's degree in mental health counseling. So he is here today to talk about a little bit of his program, but also the differences between undergraduate and graduate and very much more. So he's the first of many guests that will appear on this show. He'll probably appear multiple times as we go down the line. But Xavier, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, for sure. Like you said, Darius, right now I am getting my master's in mental health counseling from the University of Indianapolis. I graduated in May of 2023 from IUPUI, now known as IUI, with my degree or my bachelor's in psychology. My end goal is to eventually have my own private practice as a therapist, health counselor, and I'm thinking right after my master's degree, I'll be going for my doctorate. That's a little bit about me educationally. Personally, I am someone that is really interested in making deep connections with people. And like you said, Darius, I'm one of your closest friends. You are also one of my closest friends, and I really appreciate our friendship. And, let's see, what else? I think we'll leave it right there for right now.
All right. So as we dive into your undergraduate and graduate programs, what's something you wish you could have told your past self? So that could either be transferring or diving into like high school to college or high school to college and then bachelor's to master's. So what's something you could have told your past self?
Yeah, high school to undergrad, I would have told myself that it will be worth it to invest in my education. I kind of coasted through high school, not to, be bodacious, but high school was fairly easy for me. And then once I graduated, I was just kind of blasé about education. I felt like things were too easy. High school wasn't really a challenge for me. And I just was thinking, college is the next step. Yeah, but is it really going to be a challenge for me? Come to find out, it definitely was a challenge. My freshman year was one of my hardest experiences with education ever. I wanted to drop out freshman year, was at Indiana University, Bloomington, again, getting my degree in psychology. And although it was challenging, again, I just I didn't know what a college degree would be worth. I was just kind of doing it just to kind of get it out the way. I had the opportunity to do it, so why not? I now understand that there is a lot of respect and also experience that comes with being in college, being on a college campus, and just having that experience in general.
So when you mentioned that there was a shift kind of like academically
Yeah.
from high school to college, I think that's something a lot of students figure out that there's a difference are because of grade inflation. So there's a lot of trying to meet the students where they're at and not grading them as hard as they need to be graded. So that didn't quite happen with me. I think I was always like well prepared, but I know there's a lot of students that go from high school into to college are like, wait, I was cruising through high school. And then when I come to college, there's this different notion that, wait, I got to actually study. And I actually had to study time to time. I never had to because I just did good in high school. And
Yep.
so kind of got to study, got to make sure you get a schedule because nobody's going to tell you to get up. Nobody's going to breakfast, lunch, dinner. I mean, well, for you people living at home, if your parents make you breakfast in bed, you're lucky. There's kind of that notion that there is a different kind of academics level when it becomes like high school and in college. Do you feel that same thing in like your undergraduate is like it's different from your graduate school? Is there like an academic level difference that's something that's very large scale that you have to make a big adjustment for? Or how did that play out?
Yeah, so there's a level of critical thinking that's necessary in grad school that you build off of from undergrad. And that requires you to put a little bit more time and energy into studying. I learned how to study in undergrad. I was like you, high school, didn't really have to study. It was just some basic rote memory stuff. You go in, take the test, boom, get your grade back, you're cool. Undergrad was you had to be able to apply some of the information a little bit better than you would have to in high school. Graduate school, not only do you have to apply the information, you have to be able to synthesize. So you're taking information that you're learning from one course, using it in another course. And with grad school, there's more practical experiences. So not only are you learning within the classroom, you're taking what you're learning in the classroom and applying it to things like practicum and internship. I'm currently in the process of searching for practicum sites, internship sites, and things like that. And the number one thing that's on my mind is how am I going to be able to prepare myself even outside of school to be able to take that information and apply it to my practicum and internship experience.
Yeah, I think application is one of the biggest things because I've had my fair share of like getting experience there as a RA and working with students and stuff like that. But what about like real world application when you
Mm-hmm.
get into the field that you really want? By the time you're done, you've taken all these courses. And so I don't mean you talked a few times here and there. And sometimes you mentioned that the courses are specific to really kind of help you and hone into really what you like and don't like. So can you talk a little bit about your interest in those courses that you really like and that can actually play real world application? Because undergrad, there's a lot of prerequisites. I'm not going to lie. Just for all of you tuning in, there's a lot of prerequisites that you kind of have to take unless you already have college courses in high school. So there are prerequisites that you have to take freshman, sophomore. You get a little glimpse, your feet wet here and there, and some of them intro courses into your major, but you don't really get that real world application until towards like the end of graduation or that junior year. That's when you really start realizing.
Okay. Yeah. Graduate school is really a transformative experience. You really have to know yourself. My favorite course from last semester was my multicultural course. And it really kind of allowed me to hold a mirror up to myself and understand where my biases are, where I can grow, and just being about what you're saying you're about. We talk a lot about how biases play a really big role in how we interact with our clients. And it's like I said earlier, some of these things that we're learning in class have real world consequences and applications. So I really had to look at myself and understand that there's going to be some work that has to be done outside of education for me to get to the level of professionalism that's required in counseling to be able to interact with people from all different backgrounds. And I think that's really what made me appreciate this new level of academics is that what I'm learning, what I'm experiencing in class is going to follow me into my real life. I hope I answered your question.
Oh yeah, that like the courses here, there's been a lot of courses. Well, I'm sure every college student has their moment where why am I taking this course? I had that
Yeah.
moment last semester was an intro to English language course and it was an intro class and it was very difficult and I actually had to hone down and study. I already had senioritis and everything.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why am I learning how to speak like the English language and these different things and stuff like that. So I think graduate school, from what I understand, it really hones into what you're more like a practical sense and that you're actually able to get that practice, whether that's through that practicum, do that internship. And so that kind of like goes into mine. I was recently accepted into like IU Bloomington and they have their grad assistantships for higher education student affairs. And to get into the program, you have to get a grad assistantship so
Mhm.
you can get that real world experience that can help you out. But also, it's one of those requirements I feel like a lot of programs should have because they're also paying for my schooling as well. And then within that, they help you find a practicum.
Yep.
So it's like a 3-in-1 deal. So basically, by the time I finish up grad school, I will have everything, the tools to be equipped with going out into the real world. So
Yeah.
I'm really excited about grad school. So
Yes, sir. And you have every right to be. I think as I'm been able to kind of move through higher education, I'm starting to realize that undergraduate is becoming more of a necessity rather than a privilege. We talked before about how um, the bachelor's is just the new, high school diploma. You have to have one to be qualified.
mhm.
Graduate school is a choice. You're wanting to delve a little bit deeper into your topic of interest. You're taking a more nuanced approach to things. And it really is a privilege to be able to experience something like this. Like I said, it's a choice. You are taking the next step of your education to become more qualified, more experienced, things like that. So you have every right to be excited. It's an awesome step to take.
Yeah. So I mean, like with that choice comes adjustments.
Mm-hmm.
So what has been the biggest adjustment from undergrad to grad school?
Yeah, so in general, like we talked about, it's you're taking what you're learning and applying it to your everyday life. And I think that's been the biggest adjustment. I'm starting to understand a little bit better who I am, why I'm doing what I'm doing, and where I want to go. It's been a transformative experience, and I'm going to keep saying that because it really has been. I understand myself a lot better, and I don't know if that has to do with the nature of my master's degree, field of education, whatever you want to call it, but I'm learning who I am, where I want to go, and who I want to be. Academically, the critical thinking piece is huge. Yeah, there's homework. Yeah, there's assignments, but you're not just going through the motions. There's that synthesis piece that I talked about before. You're having to show that you are understanding the work while you're in class having conversations with your professors. And it'll show if you haven't done the homework. And since you're having my program, it's a cohort model. My classmates kind of travel with me through each course. We are along the same path. So I'm seeing these people every time I'm in class. I'm seeing the same professors, and you don't want to look stupid. I'll just say it plain. Like, it will show if you don't understand what's going on. So there's that competitive aspect as well. You always want to be on top of your stuff. You don't want to embarrass yourself. There's real reward to studying besides, grabbing that A. You are showing that there's an understanding and that you are prepared to be a professional, because that's the next step in my program. Because after I graduate, I take up some exams, get hours, and then I'm qualified as a professional to do my job. So, yeah.
Yeah, you had mentioned like the cohort models. Do you feel like that should be, I think I don't know, I'm not really familiar with how all graduate or cohort models are, but do you feel like that has played like a positive impact on you? So you're about to be through your first year of grad school. So can you talk a little bit about the cohort model and maybe some friends you might have made or some colleagues that have really helped you along the way?
Yeah, for sure. Like I said before, I'm someone that really enjoys deep connections and making relationships and things like that. So this cohort model has been very beneficial to my enjoyment of the program, my education. And I will say that we kind of band together to make sure that we are successful in general. Like I said, there is that competitive aspect, but at the end of the day, we are all just trying to graduate. So there's that aspect. Getting a little deeper, this cohort model has forced me to work on my social skills. Not saying that they were poor or anything like that, but going into the field that I'm going into, there's a more nuanced approach to socializing than, you would just have with just friends. And I get to work on that within my cohort and kind of bounce off of the people within it. So yeah, it's been very beneficial for me just as a person, as who I am and my education.
Yeah, I think cohort models are cool because I mean I had in School of Education we have like I guess you can say a cohort, which is where we have like block one, block two, block three, block four, and so we kind of travel. It's split up into two separate groups, but we kind of travel with each other with the
Yeah,
classes, and so it's really helped along the way because I still have like I'm in a group of three other people, and we kind of check up and make sure like, hey, how's your student teaching experience going? And remember that this is kind of due on this day, like our
exactly.
midterm evaluations coming up, and make sure that you get this document in and stuff like that. We even meet up just once a month for like after school when we go right after school, right to beat up. So that kind of
Yeah,
helps just kind of debrief to kind of have that outlet outside of school is also very important because one thing I've learned through like interviews and talking with people, they don't only want to talk about just like school. Like ask me something about outside of school. And so with my friends, we do talk like about school, but we also just updates about each other's like well-being because student
exactly.
teaching is very, very difficult. So kind of having that cohort model is very important. I think a lot of majors like have like a smaller version of like what I'm doing, but we're at the point where we're in our last semester that we don't really see each other because that's to go out and grow and sprout into your full self kind of way where we're going at right now. So I think a lot of people, if they haven't, again, I'm not too familiar with all undergrad or graduate cohort models or something similar like this, but I would highly encourage it because it helps build like community connection, support, not just with like your classmates, but also with like your professors that kind of know each other throughout the program and then can help you get an internship, can help you get a practicum. So stuff like that.
Yeah, no, and then another, just kind of bouncing off what you were saying, the relationships with professors is huge. Research is a big thing once you move from high school into the college realm. and especially within the master's and doctoral programs, professors have done their own research to get to where they're at. You got your adjunct, but you've also got your professors who are core to the programs who are maybe trying to get to their next level, whether that's I have a professor that's going for her doctorate and has to do research, has been doing research. And research is tough, honestly, but having people that have gone through what you're going through or will be going through, being able to bounce off of them, ask them about their experience will just be nothing but helpful. So that's another awesome aspect of grad school and just the cohort model in general.
All right. So going off of that, kind of balancing like that research, but more personally, like how do you balance coursework, research, and like personal life in grad school? Because me, I haven't stepped into it fully. I have my oldest brother who stepped into it, but I've always had this like preconceived notion that grad school is tough. And so I think a lot of people have that preconceived notion to begin with, just like me, just because we've never been into it. Like I thought undergrad was tough. Yeah, I mean, it had its tough like moments because final exam time, projects, presentations, papers, all that other stuff. But as a whole, I thought like undergraduate was going to be tough all the way through, just kind of how I'm thinking. Like grad school for 2 years, I'm gonna have like no time for nothing and just basically schoolwork, coursework, research, practicum, grad assistantships and stuff like that. And so how do you balance like the load? Is it as bad as I guess I'm projecting it to be, or what other people might think about if it's really that bad?
Okay, let me start off by saying this. For me personally, high school, I was able to separate my education from my personal life. I was able to get everything that I needed to get done during school, come home, chill, hang out with family, things like that. Graduate school, those things kind of mesh together. So there's a level of prioritization as well as sacrifice. I mean, sacrifice isn't always bad. It's kind of more about negotiating what's the most important thing right now. So I don't want people to think grad school is tough. It's just that you're going to have to make tough decisions since you have this new focus. Grad school is not the enemy. It's something that is going to push me forward, and I have to understand that there are some things that I'm going to have to leave behind or just save for another time. It really has been about just prioritization as well as negotiating with yourself as well as your family. I thankfully still live at home, and I've had to have many conversations with my immediate family and, extended family about, hey, I have some things that I have to prioritize as far as grad school goes. I won't be able to do X, Y, and Z, but I have free time here and there, and I can put all my effort and focus into that when I have the time. So it's not a good or bad thing. It's more about learning how to negotiate, prioritize, and sacrifice. And again, sacrifice is not always bad.
Yeah. Yeah, I I've had an interview a couple weeks ago, and that's one of the questions they asked me. How do you meet deadlines? Like, how do you prioritize what goes where, when to complete stuff? And so I think that you kind of put it. I think you put it great at how you have to kind of negotiate with yourself, with the assignments, with people around you, and say, hey, this is what I have to do. This is how I'm going to do it, and then I have this time available. I can shift some stuff if needed based on the urgency of said situation.
Yep.
And so kind of making those adjustments are really important is what I'm getting at, right?
Yeah, that's perfect. And I mean, that's another thing. If you're not ready for that adjustment based on whatever your life situation is, that's what's going to make grad school tough. And not being ready is not a bad thing. It's just you're not ready. I thankfully am in a good position where I can afford to go to school, work, and still have family time. So you really have to understand yourself and your situation before thinking about doing graduate school. And yeah, we'll leave it at that.
So when you're like thinking about all the things that you're doing in grad school and all the things that are to come, what has been the most rewarding part of your graduate school experience within the last year? Is it knowledge? Is it building relationships? Is it building connections, the opportunities? Yeah, but what has been like the most rewarding experience or part of grad school this past year?
Yeah, I mean, all the things you mentioned have been rewarding, the connections, the opportunities, things of that nature. I think the most rewarding thing for me personally has been the amount of growth that I have made because of this program. Like I said, high school, coasted, undergrad, figured it out eventually. but graduate school has put me in the position where I need to be successful.
Mhm.
That kind of mindset has shifted to other areas of my life. And I find myself being very motivated to be successful, to push myself to that next level. I coasted through my previous education, but there was that level of self-doubt that, just comes with education. Graduate school has given me the confidence and the opportunity to really show myself that it's possible to get where I want to be. I honestly did not think I would make it to this stage of academics. Like I said, I was just going through the motions. But now that I'm here, I'm like, okay, this is possible. Like, going for my doctorate is not just a dream now, it's the next step.
Yeah. They say that, I heard this phrase a few times, but they say that like the hardest part about getting into school, or like getting into school that you really want to kind of do your program, is like the getting in part, like
Yeah.
making sure the application is ready, stressing out about your resume looking nice, those letters of recommendations, getting those
Yep.
cool and all and stuff like that. So I've heard that a few times. And so I think that's also very true, because I had to go through my graduate application, and I was stressing about making sure things were correct and making sure they could get a hold of my transcript. And so I think that growth, I think college has also played a big uh, a big growth in my life, just because I live away from home. And so the 4 years of undergrad I'm only 22, and I feel like I'm way older, just because I think college forces you to mature, as well as like if you live away from home, you kind of have to make those decisions by yourself. So like I said, like I lived at home all my life until I came here, and so I didn't really have to make the decisions, because how like my parents were just really strict, so they kind of made the decisions for me. And so when I came here, I had to kind of make big decisions about
Right.
if I wanted to change my major, if I wanted to get into something, if I didn't want to do that. It kind of actually, like you said, find your identity, find yourself, find out like self growth. So I'm excited to what like grad school has to offer, because I feel like that growth aspect that you mentioned is a big part of kind of growing up into who you want to be and who you
Mm,
see yourself as.
yeah.
So with that, we're gonna end off on our last question here, and that's gonna be, what advice would you give to someone considering grad school? If you could say anything, abundance of words, statement, a quote, anything, what advice would you give someone to considering grad school?
Yeah. Okay. Grad school is more than just education. It's about growth and choosing to grow. Like I said, grad school is a choice. You're diving deeper into your your field of choice. And if you're going to do grad school, do it to the best of your ability. Don't just coast, succeed, and then some. It'll be fun. It'll be mentally taxing, but it is at the end of the day an opportunity for you to figure out who you are, how you want to grow, and where you want to go. Um,
Where you want to go? Yeah. I actually have one more question
of
that
course.
I wanted to ask, because I deal with this a lot. And that is kind of, how do you handle imposter syndrome? That's something I kind of deal with, because I see myself as pretty, like, doing pretty good stuff in college and all this other stuff. But when I get into the room with the people that are also doing as good as me, I'm like, do I belong
Yeah.
here? Or when I'm submitting an application along with like 2,000 other people or something like that, just to get an internship, and I'm wondering and asking, did I deserve to make it this far? Or I'm kind of, that comes up with that comparison, but that comparison is a thief of joy. I try like not to do that, but like just the basis of imposter syndrome, it's like, do I deserve kind of like to be here? Do you ever have kind of that imposter syndrome when you're in grad school and you're sitting in class and you're like, when someone answers a question, for example, and you're like, wait, hold on, I didn't even think of it that way. He put it, or she put it, this technical way. I didn't even think of using this vocabulary. You may be sitting in class like, why am I here
Yeah.
again? I kind of be like, what? There's like levels to this type of stuff in grad school. So how do you handle that imposter syndrome? And then if you do have it, like, what are kind of good ways to kind of keep yourself from feeling that type of way?
Yeah. That's actually a really good question. I didn't realize I was dealing with imposter syndrome until I wasn't dealing with it anymore. The application process is what really um or excuse me, not even before even the end of undergrad, I was so ready to be done that I was like, do I really need, like, based on this experience, am I going to do well in graduate school? There are so many people who were able to do their best in undergrad and then some. And I was somewhat struggling with undergrad. Do I need to go to that next level? And now that I'm at the next level, the way that I conceptualize worth is totally different from the way that I do it now is totally different from then. Just to go off of your example, let's say somebody says something that I thought was just mind blowing, like, oh, it's so simple. Why didn't I think of that? Now, my reaction to that is, let me talk to them more so I can understand their thought process. Maybe I can gain something from that. I have to understand that the people around me are, yeah, it's competitive, but this is a cohort. I'm here to learn from these folks. These are going to be my colleagues as soon as we leave this place. So instead of me looking at myself outside of the mental health counseling sphere, I see myself as now a part of it and being able to influence others and also have other people influence me. So that whole imposter syndrome thing, it just kind of went away with time because I thoroughly enjoy my program. And I also understand that just because I may not feel worthy based on past experiences doesn't mean that I'm not. I made it past the application process. They enjoy my personality. I'm able to offer things to the class. I'm able to take away things from the class. So it's about seeing how can I fit within this space? What can I get from it? And what can I give to it? But I mean, if we have a little bit of time, I think I just want to kind of maybe understand how your imposter syndrome manifests itself a little bit more if you have the time to talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes from me not validating myself
Okay.
enough. I think one of the big things is that I've had a lot of achievements, especially like really recently about a lot of stuff. And I think like you got to self-validate yourself first. And I think that's a problem I'm having trouble with because I haven't like walked the stage in undergrad just yet. So I'm trying
Yeah.
to stay kind of like in the moment of things. And I'm like, oh, I got this offer, or I got this offer, I got this. And people want to write about me here and there and such. So I think it comes with like, I'm starting to learn that it's self-validation because you can't seek that from anybody else. You can't seek that from nobody. I mean, you can try, but if you're not satisfied with yourself, then you really won't feel like that you are on top of your game. So that's why I think I feel like I'm at my peak in undergrad right now. I feel like there's still more to gain and I should be even higher to where I'm at, even though I personally feel like I'm pretty high right now, but I feel like not like settling right there is where I'm kind of having that imposter syndrome, thinking
Okay.
like somebody's probably doing like XYZ8, they doing all my stuff and some extra stuff
Right.
right there. So it's kind of not like comparison, also just sitting there, just self-validating that, hey, dude, you're doing this,
Yeah.
this, like relax just a little bit and kind of take the time out to just go on like a solo dinner or go on a walk
Yeah.
or kind of celebrate yourself. And so that's what I haven't been able to do just
Mm.
yet. And so that's kind of where the imposter syndrome comes from. So I think the biggest thing is self-validation and also, but like celebrating, like I'm going to walk the stage in like 2 months.
Yeah.
So got to celebrate before I'm going right into grad school. So I have to make time to celebrate myself now or I'll never get around to it. So I'm so slowly learning that.
Okay, for sure. Yeah, and thank you for sharing that because I know there's got to be some listeners out there that are feeling the same way, right?
Yeah, I agree.
So yeah, I mean, yeah, it's all about taking the time to reflect on your accomplishments and, like you said, validating yourself. Yeah, that's big, man.
Yeah. So that is going to be the end of our episode on today. This is another episode of Darius College Steps to Success. So I hope you all enjoyed. I hope you had your popcorn or your soda or whatever ready while you're listening as you're driving to and from work or wherever you're going. So I appreciate all the people that have tuned in today. This is a pretty kind of long one, but it was more in depth. And I know people are out there wondering, what is grad school like? Because I definitely was one of those people that I'm going to grad school in the next like 4 to 5 months or so. And so I'll be getting my feet wet in grad school, getting ready for that practicum, those internships. So this is a little insight, also personal gain for myself, but also for the viewers out there that are going right into grad school and want to know a little bit more about it, especially if you are in that mental health counseling. He did talk about a little bit more about that mental health counseling, like major perspective on there. So if that type of stuff interests you, you can reach out to Xavier Shakes. I'll probably post this on my social medias where his accounts are at. But this was a very good conversation to have with Mr. Shakes here. So I appreciate the time that you have given us today.
Of course.
And thank you all for tuning in again to another episode of Darius College Steps to Success.